If I may, I think I'd just like to go round the list of people, ask for a quick introduction from you, and then we'll kick off with the actual presentation proper. Is that all right? I'm going to
Sounds good.
Look at, thank you. I'm going to look at the list in the order that it's just appearing to me, which is often different to the order that you'd see things. So I'll just call out names, and I wondered if you could just sort of talk about yourself a little bit. Only has to be 10 seconds at minimum, and then anything up is a bonus. Okay, so I'll start with Alex Cook, if that's all right.
Sure. So I'm actually based in Brisbane, Australia, where it's 4 a.m. here.
Wow.
I thought I'd take advantage of the new situation to go to meetups around the world and see what people are doing. I used to work actually in Worthing in 2010, 11, 12 at Lloyd's TSB on a contract with them to do some data reporting. Since then, I've gone from BI developer to full stack developer, and using now Angular. Application has Angular 1.3, Angular 1.6, and Angular 8 aspects to it. We're in the process of moving across the older stuff. It's a bit of a trek. So looking forward to some more information on packaging up common components.
Great, we're here to help on that tonight, so you're welcome.
Awesome.
Cool, right, okay. Next on my list is Mark Chapman. Hello.
I've been using Angular since about version 0.6, I think, when Boita came to Brighton meetup and told us about it. And I'm still mostly using Angular JS, but I use Angular for about 20% of my work.
Cool, thank you very much. All right, next on our list, I've got Matthew Lockwood.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I've been developing probably for around 3.5 years at the moment. I've been using Angular for a year and 8 months so far. Really enjoy it, like the flexibility of the language, well, of the framework, and also really enjoy TypeScript.
Yes, I do too. I love TypeScript. It's the best thing that ever happened to JavaScript. Right, thank you very much. Can I ask where you're hailing from?
I'm hailing from London.
Oh, lovely.
I'm
Yes.
South African though.
Yeah,
so,
I see.
Yeah,
that's
so
cool.
It's coming across a little bit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right, Max, you look like you're next on the list, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. So yeah, my name's Max. I'm, I guess the last, 9 months or so, 7 months, I've been co-hosting this meetup with Tom, but coming to it for 2 or 3 years, I suppose now. I've been developing with Angular for 3 or 4 years, I think. I've kind of lost count, to be honest, since version 1.8. And yeah, I love it. I've done a mix of contracting. I'm currently perm. Yeah, the language is fantastic. TypeScript. I hate going back to vanilla JavaScript. It just ruins my day if I ever have to do that. But yeah, as a language, I think it's great. So that's me. Oh, and actually, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be. So yeah, Tom's going to be doing probably the bulk, but I'm also helping out, talking a little bit about my experience with monorepos and multi-repos and code sharing and all this stuff.
Cool. Thank you very much. And Mihai, did I say that right again?
Yeah, that's correct. You can call me Michael.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be happy either way. It's not that difficult to pronounce, but please go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I've been working with Angular 2+ for about 2 years now, and definitely I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to see what I can learn in the next year. I've been doing a lot of A/B testing with Angular, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, there's still lots to learn for me, so looking forward to it.
I think we all probably feel like that. Angular framework is incredibly big and complex, but makes us feel clever when we do something with it.
Definitely, yeah. Very satisfying.
Cool, well done. Can I ask where you're hailing from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Romania right now.
Fantastic. Welcome. That's good. All right. Maurice, hi. Welcome.
Hi, Tom. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar. Michael actually works at DNG as well.
Ah, lovely. Right. That's good news to me. Hello, fellow colleague.
But he's not on any other cool projects, unfortunately. He's on Angular, that's for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Maurice. I've been as a front-end developer probably for like 6-7 years now. Angular probably for the last 3 or 4 years as well. Yeah, I'm a big fan of JavaScript in general. So all things JavaScript, I'm interested. But yeah, first Angular meetup for me. So definitely open all ears to these sharing code solutions, especially for the work that me and Tom have coming up.
Excellent. Well, part of the reason that I brought this subject up, although Max coincidentally brought something up that's related, and we glued it together this way, is because of what I was preparing to do for you guys. So thanks, Maurice. I'm glad you're interested.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. Right. So next on my list is Paul. Hello, Mr. Eustace.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Paul. I'm the only developer here. There were supposed to be a few others, but apparently they can't make it. But I've been at LNG for about a year, and I've just switched over to being a perm for the first time after 5 years. It's a little bit fun, you know, after 5 nightmares. Been working with Angular and TypeScript, I guess, for I don't know, like Max, I can't remember anymore, but long enough that I'm fairly comfortable with it these days. So yeah, that's kind of me.
Good for you. Good story. All right. Thank you. And Philip, hi.
Hi guys. I'm a full stack developer, but I've been working with Angular for about 5 years now. I've just finished up on a contract that I started off working with Max on, and also worked with Matt on that. That was primarily Angular work there. Before that, I did a lot of, although I did some Angular front-end work, I was also doing a lot of .NET and back-end work with SQL Server as well. Yeah. And
do you still like?
I really like Angular.
Do you still like C#? Yeah.
I do. I think C#'s a really nice language. Yeah, and all the I think all the tooling around the .NET side of things is really nice. Like Visual Studio is, I don't know, the debugging is amazing. I don't want to do primarily front end. I do like, you know, doing a bit of everything.
Yep.
But doing purely front end for the past year has been really nice. I've learned tons of stuff about like style sheets with Sass, and tons of stuff about just UI stuff in general that I didn't know before, including a bit of design stuff, which has been nice. Made a bit of a change. So I think probably I like to be slightly front end weighted at the moment, but I don't want to lose the back end stuff because I do find that pretty satisfying. And I know this is sacrilegious to say here, but I've also got a plan to take a look at React in the near future and have a bit of a play with that.
Me too. It sounds, you know, we've been talking previously in a meetup that we should have a React for Angular developers type presentation so that we can shortcut the boilerplate and let's get started, you know?
I reckon.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I think Phil's volunteering for that one.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Actually, the tutorial that I'm planning on working through, which I think it looks pretty decent, is one that Matt shared with me. So I or Matt can share that with the rest of the group if anyone else is interested.
Yeah,
it's
if you want to. Yeah, if you wanted to
covers,
co-host it, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
looks like it covers tons of stuff. So
Yeah, it's
I'm
very,
happy
very
to
good.
share that.
Turns like how like change detection works and everything like that, and it's all in a very like well typed out tutorial, so you don't really have to look anywhere else, which is really nice.
Fantastic. And
A little bit
it's all,
longer than what it needs to be, I guess, especially if you've obviously done quite a bit of development before. But yeah, it's otherwise very good. So yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to book you later. Right. Okay.
I'll need more than a week though to prepare for that. Okay, Tom.
It's all right. You get more than that. Don't worry. You get plenty of time. And basically, you get as much time as you like, and then we set the date. Okay. All right. That's the end of my list. Okay. Have I missed anybody? There is one silent person in the corner, and that's my extra persona, Tom White, because I'm logged in twice. But hopefully, you'll accept. Oh yes, certainly, Mark. Yeah, you can drop the link into the chat.
Yeah,
and in fact, I was going to actually mention the chat because that's worth talking about before we get started. Okay. If anybody wants to drop comments, questions, anything into the chat, then that's cool, because if it's useful, we'll add it to the meetup notes, and if it's just a question, that's cool. And also, if you just want to butt in vocally or verbally or using your microphone, that's also welcome, because there is few enough of us to get away with that. Okay, cool. Has everybody been on a Hangout before? Yeah. The reason I ask is because you know about the change layout function. Okay, so if you get bored with looking at things one way, you can change the layout and maybe make it better, or yeah, that sort of thing. So that's just worth checking for, which is under the horizontally squashed hamburger button for the more options down in the bottom right. Okay, right. That's Google Hangout features done. So now I need to talk about some links and stuff. Okay, particularly to you guys who haven't been on the call before. So I'm going to start presenting now, if that's all right. Do that one, and there we go. And right, okay, so here I am. I'm presenting. Thank goodness. Yes, so here we go. What I'd like to highlight here is that we have a place for meetup notes, and we basically like to try and share everything that comes up in the meetup, so that you can have a look at it at your leisure. Okay, so there's two places that we do that, and if you scroll down from our meetup page on meetup.com, on the About tab, at the bottom there is a couple of discussion boxes with some links. Okay, but basically, one is our main website, which I'll open in a new tab here. Okay, and this is just basically a small little Angular application where you can revisit the old meetup notes. Okay, and just get the links. It's not pretty, but it does the job. Okay, but the other thing that it has is a link to a Google Doc with the latest meetup notes, just in case we haven't had time to add them to the website as yet. I'm hoping now that we've made it a bit easier, that'll happen quickly anyway. But this is also available via the discussion here. This is the Google Meetup, Google Doc, I should say. And I'll jump to that right here. Right, there we go. So this is just the shared document. And if you guys get bored of at any point of my presentation, because I might drone on a bit, you can skip ahead. So you can open these links right now if you'd like to, and see our deck, and also see our examples, and you can clone these repos or however you want to play it. Fork them if you like, or even send us PRs. That's fine. And yeah, this is basically stuff that we're going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about this list here now, but that's just if you want to take a shortcut whilst this is going on. Okay. Right. That's the links for now. I think I can get rid of those, and I think we can get into the nitty gritty. And I'll just flip back to this over here, and I'll move that out of the way so I can see everybody. Are you all okay with that so far? You can nod or whatever, but I'm now going to get into the sharing code business because I've kept you talking long enough. So let's present. All right. So as mentioned before, Max and I ended up doing this because we realized that the people that we're doing work for could do with you know, some well-researched advice on doing some tricks. So sharing code is what we're about tonight. Okay. Now I'm biased in one direction, and I'm going to leave you to guess which way that is. But yeah, well, we're going to talk about the various options that we are aware of. Okay. And hopefully, if you think of any that we've missed, then please, by all means, mention it. All right. Now I'm just going to try and open my speaker notes, so I've got that beside there. Now I'm happy. And whoops, I'm gonna. Yep, that's helpful enough. I'm going to go there. Okay. So right. To my mind, there are only a few ways of sharing code. They're easy to list, but the primary one is copy paste. All right, it fairly speaks for itself, and I'm not going to bother talking about it apart from say it happens a lot, but nobody likes to admit it. Okay. Then within what Max has described, the bounds of a multi-repo, which I'm hoping he's going to expand on, because funnily enough, to me, that's quite a newish term. But I am used to talking about separate repositories, which to my mind, this sort of fits into. But multi-repos are technically a whole religion unto themselves also. There's a rabbit hole that you can go down about how strictly multi-repo you are. So within that, one of the ways that you can do that is sub-repositories. Okay. Does anybody have any sort of awareness about what a sub-repo is? And how
I used Git submodules once and vowed to never ever do it again because it was messy, difficult to use, complicated, didn't really achieve what I wanted to achieve. So that's the extent, really.
Lovely. Could you, for the audience, could you explain basically what a sub-repo is?
So it's basically Git has the ability to add. It actually explicitly has a feature to allow you to add and manage sub-repositories within your repo. So it's essentially an area of your Git repo that it knows is another Git repo, and it knows not to version the files that are in there. You also have, there's some sort of helper functionality around it where you can choose, if I'm remembering rightly, this is a good like 4 or 5 years ago since I've done this, but you can choose which version of the sub repo that you're sort of essentially tracking in your parent repo. So there is, it does explicitly give you that ability, but it's just yeah, it's not a nice experience for the developer.
Okay, cool. So I think that's part of the evaluation done.
Yeah,
we ticked that one off. Yeah. Okay. The next two, we're going to talk about in a bit more depth because they definitely fill an important role, and I'm sure that of you have heard of npm package libraries because we use them every day as Angular developers, but to use your own privately managed ones, maybe some have and some haven't. And I think Max is going to give us a demo on how he does that. So looking forward to that bit. Another new competitor, or relatively new competitor, is Bit.dev. And they're taking the concept of npm packaged libraries or private package libraries to the next level, allegedly. They're offering tooling and basically a whole managed solution that looks really cool. And Max is also going to be giving a view on that. And then the final section that we're going to talk about is NX, as in monorepos. Now, a monorepo, the basic concept is you have all of your code in one place. And that includes all of the code for all of the projects. And the idea is that you can share code between projects or apps by splitting them out into libraries that are then cross-shared. Okay, I'm going to turn that down. Sorry about the bing bing, that's very impolite of me. Do that, there, gone. Right, okay. So I think the next one is for Max. So here you go, Max.
Cool. So yeah, you mentioned earlier that you hadn't seen the term multi-repo, and actually, nor had I. I sort of, I obviously you were talking about monorepos, and I realized that I didn't actually know what to call what we were currently doing. So multi-repo, I don't know if it's a coined term or not, but that's what I'm going to use. Basically, it's the opposite of what Tom just said. So our use case, for example, we have I think 4 different Angular apps now. Each one is designed for a different type of user to log in. But however your company does it, if you have several projects, multi-repo is basically just the default option, which is to have one Git repository for each project. So there are lots of pros and cons. I mean, it's kind of a bit of a raging debate at the moment about as to which is better. I'm going to run through them really quickly, but we'll go into a bit more depth later. One of the good things about multi-repo is that you're forced to have clean code boundaries. So as anyone who's worked on a big project will know, it's very quickly difficult to actually manage like what everything's doing. As it kind of grows bigger, the complexity seems to get exponentially higher as everything sort of snakes its way into one big blob. So multi-repos sort of force you to keep everything separate. But that can also be a drawback because in the case of needing to share components, for example, between your projects, you have to think of some kind of solution. So that's where some of these issues is where things like Bit.dev and npm come into play. Your app repos can be a bit leaner just because they're separated out. If everything is in one app, it can get a bit tricky to use. Different apps can use different component versions. I think this is an issue with monorepo that maybe Tom will talk about. In terms of cons, with multi-repo, there's a big overhead, particularly if you're sharing code via intermediary packages, because you're constantly switching projects. You're having to manage twice the number of PRs, twice the number of branches. If you are creating npm packages or whatever to share code, then you have to actually create those packages, go in all your different projects, update the version numbers, install everything, do the PRs. On top of that, my experience has been that the tooling available around multi-repos is actually quite immature. But I'll go into that in a bit more detail later on. The workflow is complicated. That goes back to the overhead. You're constantly running commands to package stuff, build stuff, create create bundles. Can be a bit of a nightmare. When stuff's split between lots of different repos as well, just finding what the code you're actually trying to look at, particularly when stuff's shared, can be very difficult. And then again, when you are going the NPM route and making packages to share code on the front end, you have to be very careful with your versioning in terms of breaking changes or whatever, or even just documenting what is in each version of the code. So yeah, we'll go into a bit more detail on those a bit later. I'll talk about the ways that those two approaches, npm packages and bit.dev, try to address some of these issues and where they fall short. So, by the way, I just want to say, anyone has any questions, wants me to elaborate a bit more on anything, just jump in. So bit.dev, I don't know if anyone's come across it at all, but essentially it's a layer of abstraction above npm packages. So one with multi-repos, obviously if you have some shared code, the way you're able to share actual code between those projects is via creating npm packages, publishing them to a private npm stream, and then synchronizing them between your projects. Bit.dev, like I said, is a layer above. So it comes with command line utilities and commands to expedite versioning things, creating packages, and essentially helping you with the workflow. And it under the hood, it uses Ng-packagr. Ng-packagr is a tool that basically bundles up your Angular code in a way that npm understands. Makes it quite quick and easy. So you're working with existing ecosystem tools. And bit.dev comes with commands to create new libraries, commands to bump up versions nice and easily. And also the online interface allows you, it's kind of like a gallery of all your components. So you can log in and browse to see what components you have available. So that's quite cool. There's lots of nice features in there. I spent about a week and a half trying to implement it, and it was just pain. It was a week and a half of absolute pain. The main reason for that is it's just not quite there in terms of its maturity. It's quite buggy. I had to raise a couple of issues on GitHub. There's only like 10 questions about the tool on Stack Overflow. But it's built by GitHub. It addresses a problem that really does need to be solved, and that, as far as I know, there aren't any other real players in the industry. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this time next year, or maybe in 2 years, bit.dev is doing very well. But until then, I can't really recommend them, unless maybe if you have a very small project. The main issues I was facing seemed to sort of rear their heads when my use case became more and more complicated. When it was just one or two very simple components, it was actually fine. So yes, so for now I wouldn't recommend them, but watch this space, because I do think they'll do quite well.
Cool, thanks Max. I'll flip to the next slide if I may. Okay. So I'm going to talk about why Monorepo. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we've got some pros here. I mean, for me, there is two major benefits to a Monorepo, and the first one is right up there. It's the increased code visibility. So people can really see the shared code and see it as it develops. They can also be more aware of the history of what's going on, because of they've got access to the same repo. And the other one that I like it for is it helps us to adopt patterns that create consistency in our code. But that's a tad more tricky because it's easy to let it run away with you. But that's what I'm going to talk about tonight, using patterns to shape our monorepos. So I'll be talking about that in a short while. Now, Max has listed some beautiful cons here. They've got a dependency trap. So the idea being, I believe, that everybody's forced to use the same version of things, although you can mitigate that by creating a duplicate folder, so like a deprecated lib and then a bleeding edge lib, and have people move over to that gradually. IDEs can struggle. This is very true. I've noticed this with VS Code, that there can be a point where it's starting to get a bit laggy. The Angular language server that's running can struggle, but I think that can also be related to how the code's been structured. So I'm going to be talking about things that can help speed that up, or you can sort of effectively bypass the issues. And the final con down here is the no barrier to code coupling. So it's possible to accidentally create massive circular dependencies. And it's also possible to link to stuff that you shouldn't really link to. However, I'm also going to show you ways to use the Angular Enterprise Monorepo patterns to avoid that. Okay, so let's move on. So I'm going to be talking about NX because that, to me, is the main, becoming the go-to tool for monorepos. I think the only place it doesn't seem to work very well is with AWS Lambdas, funnily enough. But I think for all sort of Node projects and the various other forms of code, it's now becoming a really good platform for doing. I don't know if you know, but NX also supports React, and it supports a lot of other tooling and frameworks.
Also, JavaScript backend like Nest.js or presumably Express or whatever.
Absolutely. Nest is actually a first-class citizen of NX, so it is, they want you to use it in conjunction with your Angular because it becomes very easy to use the same sort of language to talk about front and back in a similar way and share code between them. Okay, so what does NX bring? The one that I love the most is the linter rules to prevent code coupling. So that thing I was just talking about, the circular dependencies and the importing code from where you shouldn't be. The linter, once it's configured correctly, will absolutely stop that. Okay, and that's exactly why we should be thinking about, if you don't already, having a lint step in your CI build chain. So your Jenkins or whatever needs to be checking to make sure that lint passes before it does a deploy or such, because that's a good test and a good way of having good separation and cleaner code as well. Okay, schematics, they're basically a CLI commands that can build and scaffold stuff, just like Angular, but on steroids, because it does some extra stuff for the monorepo. Now, another tool that I really like, and I'm going to show you, is the dependency graph. I'm not going to say much about it because it's better to just go, bam, there you go, have some of that. The other nice things that it's got is you can test, build, or lint using only the affected code. And I will mention how that works a bit later. But basically, it uses git commits to compare code. So it's doing a diff, and then the excuse me, only the code that's been affected gets those tests built or linting run against them. So it helps with the speed of running those things. Comes with a set of utilities to prevent race conditions, and as this final bullet point, it does feel familiar to Angular users because it uses similar terminology, and more importantly, Angular now can build its own libraries. So you know, you can scaffold your own libraries. So NX is just like using that, but bigger. That's all. Just a bit more detail, bit more constraints, bit more opinionated views on things. So I'm going to hand over to Max to talk about our experience, and I'm being infiltrated in the process. So you go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, well, Tom, if you want to jump in at all in this, but so like I said, I spent a good week and a half trying to get Bit.dev working, and it was just very painful. So I did a complete 180. Luckily managed to convince everyone else at work as well that instead of going for multi-repo, we should go for monorepo, which is obviously the polar opposite. And got Nrwl, whizzed through the tutorial and got it up and running, to be honest, within a couple of hours. And it feels very mature. The tutorials are clear, it's powerful. Yeah, it didn't feel like something that was getting in my way during my workflows. So yeah, so I think it's great. I think Tom's got more experience than I have. I'm sort of a third of the way through the migration process to Monorepo and NX, which I'm going to talk about the migration process a bit more later. So I'll know more later, but Tom's dug very, very deeply into monorepos and NX, so he'll take you through that.
Yeah, I look forward to that bit. So let's do a quick convince you to use monorepos now. Okay, this is a quote from Victor Savkin, the founder of Nrwl, who produced NX. Okay, he basically says that, you know, if things take too long, people don't bother doing it, and I think that's absolutely true. So this is a good reason to choose the fastest route to producing shared code, and hopefully by the end of tonight you might have a decision about how you will share your code, and maybe have a migration path even to choose a slightly more easy to implement but slow to do way, and then end up with the faster way that takes a bit more work to get to. Okay, right. That's the end of that presentation, I think. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to myself and do the next presentation. So if you'll bear with me, I'll just that. There we go. And oh, you're getting a nice scene of windows. There we go. Yes, bring that one in. And here we go. So up here, this fellow present. All right, can you see okay? You've got my screen all working?
Yep, all good.
Good, okay. All right. So I'm going to talk about Enterprise Angular Monorepo Patterns, which is basically a book, okay, that's written by Nrwl, and they're trying to give you their view of the world. Now, there are other views, and I'm going to talk briefly about those, but the takeaway from this presentation is that my belief is that if you adopt a set of patterns and the rest of your devs adopt those same patterns, then you can end up with something that's more easily shareable and more easily understandable and maintainable. Okay, but we'll talk about that in a second. So I'm going to move on, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to get my nice pointer going so that we can point at things. So to be fair, okay, because I'm going to present one view of the world, there are other views to be had, and within this presentation we've got these links so that if you open this presentation on those shared links that I showed you earlier in the meetup notes, then you can access these. And these are good sort of like either related or competing systems. And I thoroughly recommend this YouTube link, because that in a nutshell gives a slightly different view to the Nrwl view, but it's really succinct. I think it only takes about 30 or 40 minutes, and it's well worth it. He's a clever boy, is Manfred Steyer. Okay, I saw him at Nrwl Connect a couple of years ago. He's a very good speaker. Right, and the second one is where I actually discovered about the Nrwl book. So I sort of reversed through their references and actually found out about the Nrwl patterns, which I much prefer, but that's just me. Okay.
We're sorry,
Yeah.
just to say we've put links to this, all three presentation Google presentations in the document that Tom showed us earlier. So you can actually get those links directly from the presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, spot on. Absolutely. Right. Okay, let's move on to the next page then. So why monorepo patterns? We started that question earlier, but for me, it is a goal of sharing code, but it's also a goal of making well-defined modules that simplify maintenance, okay? And it's just got these buzzwords here for reuse and consistency and modular development, all right? Now, here's the meat and potatoes. So I'm going to focus on this slide and then just sort of buzz through the rest. But this is the pattern, the Angular Enterprise Monorepo pattern. Okay, they have 4 types of library. And the reason they have 4 is that they feel that a small vocabulary, as in a small amount of choices, creates a better understanding, so people more readily use it. Other views of the world see the need for slightly more library types, but you're welcome to explore those. For me, I love this simplicity. So let's delve quickly into these. Feature libraries basically contain features. Okay, I think everybody knows what a feature is, but the Nrwl view of a feature library specifically usually fits a page on a spar. So wherever you route to, that is a feature, and then a feature shell will contain a group of those routes, if you like, those routed pages, and they would be related. So in an example that we're going to talk about later, they talk about a booking feature for making bookings, and then they have pages within that booking feature where you can do searches and such and then make your booking. So those kind of things tie together nicely and become one sort of subdomain, if you like, of the app. Okay, and then they're contained in a feature shell which contains the routing. Right. Then the next thing is UI libraries, and the idea is that you separate out all of your dumb components, your presentational components, and you put them in a library. Now, why might you do that? Where some of them are a little bit weird, they might not be, that generic. Well, the answer is that the more you separate them out into separate libraries, then the more easy it becomes to factor them or to inherit from them, so that they become something more useful, and also allow you to boil it down to some generic components that become more shareable. What I should mention at this point is that there are 2 views of UI libraries. There's the UI libraries that you would use in a specific feature area of an app, a subdomain, if you like. Okay, and there are UI libraries that you would share everywhere, like a tick box or an input, and they would be very generic and go into a very openly shared area. Okay, Another type of library is the data access. This is two important things. It's got the NGRX, and it's got the services that access the backend, make the API calls or open up the sockets. Okay, and it's a clearly defined place for you to just put those two forms of stuff. So one is to do with communications within your app, and the other is to do with communications with the backend. And they both tie together because they sit naturally together. I hope you agree. And then finally, the other bit is a utility library. I'm just going to briefly, hopefully utility libraries make sense to everybody, so I'm not going to describe that too much. But what's important here is dependency. Okay, I'll relate to this a bit later, but feature libraries can import UI libraries, they can import data access libraries, and they can import utility libraries because they're the big parent of things. Okay, but data access libraries can only import from other data access libraries or utility libraries, and UI libraries can only import from utility libraries, and utility libraries can only import from utility libraries. Okay, and that is the structure. That what they're trying to say is that by having a tiered structure that's very similar to domain-driven development, which is a concept that's been around for 20 years, and I don't want to waste too much time going in depth, but if you see that YouTube that I mentioned earlier, you'll get a full-blown version of it. The idea is that you're creating a separation of concerns and you're avoiding circular dependencies. Okay, so you're creating a good tree-like structure that branches out correctly. And I'm going to show you how to enforce that later. So to go with the pattern, they've got some rules. Okay, these are pretty straightforward. I won't bother going into the bottom two because I don't want to waste time. But most importantly, the pattern is organized by two tags, if you like, scope and type. Okay, scope is like the feature area. So before I mentioned the word booking, that's a good feature area. And type, that's the type of the library. So when I say one of the four, I mean one of those four. Okay.
Tom, I got a super quick question about these four.
Right.
Do you want to do it now or after you finish that next slide?
I think it's a great time to do it because I need a breath.
Okay. Yeah. So say you have an interface in your data access library, and then you have sort of maybe a helper method for that interface. So either a factory function or I don't know, some other function that manipulates it, clones it, for example. Would that go? I'm guessing that would also go in the data access library and not the utility library.
So who would you intend to share that with? Who?
Well, I suppose it would be other users of the data access library. So yeah, I guess that answers my question.
Yeah, I think you have. I think you're spot on. That makes sense. So if you treat data access as the place where you effectively you're storing most of your domain, your knowledge about business rules and your data management, so blobs of data and the way they're shaped, that actually sit in there. I have, however, thought of one dependency issue with this structure, and that is, where do you put your shared interfaces, which are a big feature of TypeScript? And I believe that everything in Angular should be typed if at all possible. All right.
Yeah.
That means that UI libraries would link to a data access library if you keep your domain purely there. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's all right. No problem. And you're welcome to say go for it.
I was just going to say I've come across this as well, and I tend to do is I just have I have types built into the components in the UI libraries and then map between the two, but that results in a lot of duplication.
Yes.
and mapping constantly. But yeah, it works. It works quite nicely. But.
Okay. So that I can avoid cross-linking from UI libraries to anywhere else, the one place they're allowed import from is a utility library. So my feeling is that that part of the domain, these shared interfaces, should technically be in a utility library. Because although the name is not that cool, and you could create a new type that's just called interfaces or entities, because it would be doing the same job and have the same limitation as a utility library, that it can only import from other utility libraries, and UI libraries have access to it. I think is a natural place for interfaces. Okay, but that's just my feeling. Go on.
I agree with you, Tom.
Hey.
I think actually, if you think about it from a TypeScript, a development perspective, an interface in Type really is just a utility, because it's pure part of to make the dev process nicer and to introduce a bit of type safety. So I think utilities make sense for that.
Thank you. I agree with you. But if you were playing strict domain structure, then interfaces are domain and therefore should be in data access. But it's not going to work for you UI libraries because you can't link that way. So anyway, that's something for discussion. I'm going to move on because I don't want to keep going for too long. So NX comes with a bunch of tools, as mentioned before, and it can enforce quality and consistency, and it helps enforce the monorepo pattern. Okay. Now, the bit I've highlighted in blue is that it has boundary enforcement between libraries. I've mentioned that earlier. Basically, that's in the lint tools. I'm going to demonstrate those shortly. And what do you know? We're ready for our demonstration. All right. Now, this is a GitHub repo that's fully open, and you're allowed clone and do whatever you like with. You'd be welcome to submit PRs to. But it's time for me to bring up the code. So I shall do that, and I shall there. Okie dokie. So I'm going to close that down, and I'm going to right. Okay. So as you can imagine, in preparation for this presentation, I've been doing a lot of homework, largely because I really wanted to explore these patterns. So because I've been using NX for a number of years now, and I really like it, but I've been sort of making my own structure up. Yeah, and I've noticed that from time to time, when sharing code in NX with other people as well, there is a drift to drop them into somewhere where it's easy, rather than having some rules. And I think by having prescribed rules by someone else rather than myself, people are going to listen. So I think that's why I'm presenting this. Okay, so right, I've basically read this book, and through the book there are various examples that ultimately tie together to build what is effectively a monorepo for sharing stuff using the monorepo patterns. And it's got a booking app, and it's got a check-in app. Can you see the code okay? Is it big enough? Good. Okay.
Yep.
It's actually got two apps within each of those areas, okay, those sort of domains. And it's also got the E2E projects, okay, which I'm not going to bother talking about too much, okay, but it's got a booking desktop app and a booking mobile app, so they're both related, and they both actually use the same code. The idea would be that the mobile my audio's gone.
You're back now. You just lost the last 10 seconds.
Oh, right. Thank you. Right. Okay. So yeah, let's see if I can backtrack. So the mobile apps might have a different kind of shell or a sort of presentation. They might be wrapped in, say, for instance, Ionic or Cordova. But the idea is that they share the same basic code, okay, in this particular example that was in the book, okay? Now, the concept of the monorepo pattern is that they do the minimum amount of code in each one of these apps. So I'll just expand one very briefly, okay? All it's got, look at that, it's just got an app folder, okay? And it's got an app component with an app module, all right? And within that, it just does a lazy load on the booking feature shell, which is a lib, all right? Right, so let's move on rather than hesitate. Down here in the booking domain lib area, we've got several libs. Okay, we've got a data access one, we've got the feature shell to contain everything, and then we've got these page components, the feature flight search and the feature passenger info. Okay, and then down in the check-in domain, we've got one page feature shell, okay, and a data access library as well. Okay, so those are all related to each of their own domains. And then finally, there's a shared lib that has shared data access and a seat map that's shared between both application domains. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Okay, so let's get on and deal with the actual demo, if you like. Okay, so you've seen the structure. Now I'm going to use one of the cool tools. Okay, and to do that, I'm going to go over to the package.json. Okay, and I'm going to hover over the depth graph tool, which is really neat, and I'm going to show you. Okay, and I'll make that bigger and I'll zoom in a tad. Now, can you guys see that? So this is a...
Just about.
Right. So it's a bit difficult to read, is it, Max?
It's okay, just a tiny
yeah, I'll expand it slightly more than it needs to be so you guys can read some stuff. But basically, what it does is it draws all of the linkages between your modules. Okay, so you can tell which library is importing from which. All right, so that allows you to visually enforce your boundaries. All right, but it also allows you to know who to talk to when you've got different teams doing different projects. Okay, about your shared data access library, say for instance down here. Okay, if you want to make changes to that, you know which teams you've got to tell, which is basically everybody. But
they recommend assigning a lib to an individual, right?
Yes.
Nx.
Yes. And well, not an individual. Code ownership is about a team, so you just give a team name. Okay.
Can I just? I'm not sure if I've just missed this, Tom. But what's the difference between the solid lines and the dotted lines? Are the solid ones always implicit?
Lovely.
Only a few of them are labeled.
So dotted lines are lazy loaded.
Ah, okay.
All right, simple as that.
That's clever. It can tell that.
Thank you.
It is, isn't it? It's absolutely wicked. Now let's do something cooler, okay? Because it does actually do cooler. All right. So let's go back to the app. All right. Now what I'm going to do?
Cooler than that.
I'm going to do a depth graph of just the changed bits. So I'm going to do affected a depth graph. Okay, here we go. Now, it's because I've got one running. I meant to close my windows. Please excuse me. When you're running one depth graph, you can't run the other. So there's a learning for you. Let's do that again. So what I should mention is I'm on a branch of my repo, okay? And this is now showing me the bit that I've changed on the branch as compared to the default branch, which is, in my case, master, but it can be developed, okay? And this is now showing me just the dependencies that have changed, because I created, on my branch, I created a new component inside a check-in feature shell, okay? Now, here's the cool part. I can just go select all, and now I can see the whole app. Okay, let's expand. Whoops, not F12, F11. Right. So now I can see the whole dependency tree, and I can see the bit that's been affected. All right. Now, why is that so interesting? Well, it's because of the next tools that you can do. Okay, so I'm going to close that down. I'm going to come back to my app. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do build affected. All right. Now this is important for your Jenkins pipeline. This is what's going to convince your DevOps that this is for real. This is what's worth doing. All right. Here I am. I'm in my dist apps folder, which in NX terms is like they have subfolders in their dist folder to contain different apps. All right. So as you can see at the moment, it's empty. All right. So nothing special. So what I'm now going to do is I'll close that window down. Okay. And I'm going to do an affected build. All right. And if I hover over it correctly and run the script, and we're going to come over here and, oh, Bob's your uncle. Now, wasn't that quick? That was a bit quick, wasn't it? Now, one of the reasons for that is NX has two things going for it, right? It's got special memory management that will kill a machine with not much memory, but will run faster. And it also's got caching. So whatever hasn't changed, okay, it will just serve up the previously built artifacts. I don't know how the hell it does that because I can't find where it stashed them, but I haven't delved too deeply. Anyway, here's what you do with your Jenkins pipeline. You go and check for the existence of folders of apps, okay, and then you deploy them. Okay, does that make sense? And does anybody have a question at all? I'm just going to check on the Max was just the last one to leave a comment, but if you've got any questions about that, now's the time to fire. All right. Okay. Meantime, I'm going to move on to the next cool thing, which is the final part of my demo. Okay, which is about the link rules, how to enforce those boundaries. All right. So.
Sorry, Tom. Just if I'm understanding correctly, if you run an affected build, it only builds the code that's actually been changed. And I think is that what you're trying to demo?
Yes. So okay. the idea is that when you're doing CI, particularly for your test or UAT environment that has the latest build deployed to it,
already,
okay,
yeah.
You can run this affected against your branch before you merge, okay, and that will deploy, okay, or just as you merge, I should say, all right. And pick up the commits and just pass them in as a filter. Okay, it'll do the diff. And then most importantly, because I was just talking about one feature shell library that was altered, okay, it will also pick up the artifacts downstream from that. So it'll be all the chained libs that they're required to build one app. So you get the whole thing. You don't get a partial app, okay? But it will give you just the apps that need to be built. Does that make sense? Cool.
Yep.
All right. I hope you like that as much as I do, because I think that's a winner. Right, the linting. Okay, so let's do a quick bit of lint. I'm not going to. Yeah, I'll do an affected lint. Okay, I'm going to run that script. Okay, and let's see the linter running. All right. So it's not going to get up to much because it's only running a few areas that got altered by this chain. Okay. So anyway, it's going to get through that. There we go. Right, it's all passed. Happy days. So now let's break those rules. So what I'm going to do is flip to a branch where I've got illegal dependencies. Okay, and now I'm going to run the lint tool over the whole of it so we can just see that running. And this really is the last part of my demo, and then we're on to Max. All right, so bear with me. Just want to show this working because it's not only is it a good Jenkins pipeline stop, so you can't deploy stuff that breaks those rules, but it's also a good thing for debugging. Okay, so when I run it in my own command line, you can see here I've got these I've got 2 errors in the same file. Okay, and you can just highlight on them just like any other debug and go and see your illegal imports. So the 2 illegal imports I've got is one that comes out of the box where I have to use the @patterns, okay, example. So that is using, what's the name for it? There, you get them in the TS config file.
They're just called paths.
Paths, lovely. Okay, so if you're importing from a library, you have to import from a path instead of actually navigating the tree. So you can't use file management to do the import. Okay, so that's one rule broken. Okay, and the second one is over here. A project tagged with scope booking can only depend on libs tagged with scope booking. Okay, so in this case, I'm trying to import a check-in module from within the booking domain, and that's not allowed. Okay, so that's the other reason for my lint error. All right, so good separation of concerns ruled by my lint rules, which you have to manually configure. Okay, but they help you with. All right, and the rules are there, and you can steal those. All right, all you've got to do is change the scope names. You can see here I've got booking and check-in. If you just change those to the name of your projects, you've nailed it. Okay.
And Tom, do you have to specify in each of your individual packages? Do you have to specify the scope of those as well?
You can if you want to, okay, but the idea is that you don't strictly bother too much. You just let the build tool do it. So when you scaffold using, say for instance, you scaffold a library, you can use the Angular tools, but you can use the Nx CLI or the console to scaffold that lib for you, and it asks you for the tags. Okay, and the tags are scope and type. Okay, but you have to manually type it in.
Okay.
I'm wondering if there we go. Here in the NX.json file, this is where they're set, so you can manually update them yourself here. Okay, but so they were automatically scaffolded for me. I've probably adapted a couple of them because I accidentally scaffolded it wrong, but yeah, that's the pattern to follow. All right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Nope, that seems to be it. So that's my bit done. I hope you like NX as much as I do. If anyone's interested after this, I'm on the NX Slack group as well, and I can get you an invite. All right, cool. All right, handing over to Max now. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tom.
Shall we? Yeah, cheers, Tom. That was really interesting, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to take a short break? Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we? How long do you want? 2 or 3 minutes, or does anyone need longer?
I think I'm on.
Should we call it 4?
Cool. How about 3 minutes 45?
Lovely. Sold. Cool. Okay. Cheers.
Right. Okay. Back to us up.
Tom, I'm just going to have to drop out, unfortunately. Dying for dinner after my run. So thanks very much for organising this, and I'll watch the rest of it on the recording.
Oh, you're most welcome. I hope some of that particularly about the tooling, might be of interest to you, actually, Paul.
Yeah, it was. It was good to kind of revisit NX, and yeah, I see it's come a long way since when I first started using it, EDF.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot to be reasonably excited about. So yeah, good.
Cool. All right.
All
Well,
right.
I'll see.
Yeah, all the best. Catch you soon. Cheers. Hi, Max.
Hello.
Hey guys.
My 3.5
Hi,
minutes.
Phil.
Sorry, I'm 4 seconds late.
Oh,
You'll
terrible.
have to leave. You'll have to leave. I'm keeping a record of everyone who's late.
Oh, Alex, you bought your cat. That's lovely.
Yeah, he's come to partake.
That's great. Does he do Angular?
No, he's a bit old. He's just turned 18. It's you know.
Wow. Wow, that's
Wow.
that's a ripe old age. That is fantastic.
Did you say, Alex, that you're in Brisbane?
Yeah,
Right now?
that's right. Yeah.
Mm.
It's
How is it over there at the moment?
it's not too bad. We're actually looking at easing some of the restrictions in the next couple of weeks, so we can go out and exercise and still visit each other in small numbers. It's not too bad here. Nowhere near like it's been in the UK from what I've seen on the news.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're meant to make an announcement tonight, but I don't know if we're going to be allowed to do small groups at this point. I'm really not sure. I about 4 or 5 years ago, I lived in Brisbane as well and worked in the city for about a year.
Oh, great. Whereabouts did you
Got
live?
very fun. I lived at the Gap.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. What about you?
Lovely. I'm in Wavell Heights, north side.
I don't think I ever went there. I didn't explore too much, and I was only there for a year. I was working in the city, so it was kind of just there.
No,
Really, but I love it. It's a really, really nice city. I think nice balance.
Absolutely. It's a very beautiful city. Yeah, I've just been there on a holiday before, but anyway.
It's growing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you must be a very keen Angular developer to be doing it at this time of your morning. So well done. Well done. You are most welcome.
Fully committed.
Cool. Okay. Is anybody else back from their break?
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, good. Hi, Maurice. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Hopefully you didn't go too much to sleep in my presentation. Max is gonna.
Yeah, writing notes. Don't worry, I'm listening.
That's cool. And I'm hoping Max is gonna sort of pick things up and make us all happy now.
Don't don't big up too much, because otherwise everyone will be disappointed. I'll do my best. Yeah, are you guys happy to carry on now?
I reckon. Yeah, I reckon so. It's worth it. Yeah. Yeah. The other guys are on mute anyway, so they'll just come in and pick up. It'll be fine.
Cool. All right. So let me share my screen. Okay. Right. How is that? Can everyone see?
All good.
Cool. Right. So presentation mode. So I've got a nice title screen, but not much to say in it, other than I am following on from the fact that everyone is now 100% sold on NX and Monorepos by Tom and his fantastic pitch. I'm going to talk a little bit about the migration process, because probably due to the nature, I think, of the way coding often is, you sort of get started, grow quite organically, and then you get to a certain point and realize that things are a bit unmanageable, and then you sort of try to put some organization into it. And so that's, for me, that's how it's happened, at least. And I'm in a situation where we have four separate projects, some code copied and pasted between a bunch of them, stuff scattered all over the place, and not much like consistency. So the process of actually trying to get NX and Monorepo set up it's a bit tricky. So we're going to try and hopefully give you a bit of an idea about how to go about that. So Tom has put together this very helpful flow chart, which describes the steps you can take. So the goal, basically, obviously, you're not going to want to do everything in one go. So the goal is to do a sort of step-by-step process, probably project by project. And so I'll just take you through what I've done, and then go through a little sort of code demonstration to show you the most interesting part. So the general process is you you start off with, let's say, let's keep it simple and say you start off with 2 multi-repo projects, so 2 Git repositories, 2 Angular apps. You want to get them both into a monorepo project, so you're able to share code. So the first thing you would do is you would move one project to NX and into a monorepo format. You can either use the existing repo or create a new one, doesn't really matter. Once you've done that, you've got the whole monorepo architecture in one Git repo and just one app inside it, and then you've got your other standalone multi-repo app in a separate repo. The next thing you'll need to do is gather up the shared code inside that monorepo and move it all into a lib. So typically this can be split out like how into those 4 sort of lib types that Tom was talking about, or you can have one big one. This is just an intermediary step. So whatever works for you, I'd say. Strictly, if you're going to be strict about it, you would want to go for the 4 separate packages. But because this is an intermediary step along the way to try and get monorepo, I personally say it doesn't matter hugely. So once you've got all your shared code into a lib, you then publish that lib from you build that lib and publish it to npm. So at this stage, you've got your monorepo with one app. You've got one lib inside your monorepo. That lib is packaged up and published to npm. Obviously, a private package, so only you have access to it. And then you migrate your other app, so your standalone project. You can remove any shared code from the app, install the npm package, and then reference that package directly instead. And then finally, once you've got all of that done, you can move your one remaining standalone app into the monorepo, and then just rinse and repeat. If you have multiple apps that need to go in, rinse and repeat that process. So the cool thing is you're not duplicating much work because you're going to need to be refactoring to use these libs and shared code anyway. It makes the process quite like stepped, so you're not doing everything at once. You're not having to do it over the weekend to avoid massive PRs and that sort of thing. So the bit I'm going to talk about is the process of actually publishing your lib to npm, because I suspect that not many people have had experience of that. I certainly didn't, and there's a few tools that you need to use that aren't that familiar, but it's actually surprisingly easy. So I'm going to share you the link to this presentation actually, and then you can check out either of these repos while I'm talking if you want to, or after. It's all good. So if I copy that link and then come over here, paste that. So migration presentation. Okay. So let's have a look. Okay, so I've set up 2 projects, and I've basically pilfered Microsoft's Contoso example, and then gerrymandered the default NX project to just set up 2 very, very, very bare bones sites. So we've got this one, which is in my example, I'm going to pretend it's the Contoso public facing website. And And then in the other tab, I'm going to pretend this is the Contoso intranet website. So 2 separate projects, but what you'll notice is that they've both got this news component here. So if I go back again, this one's in the sidebar. So this component is actually shared between the two using npm packages. So if I run through the code quickly and then show you how that's done, I'm going to step you through the process of updating that npm package, publishing it to the npm collection, and then pulling it down into your other project. So okay, so here we go. This is the Monorepo project. So as you can see, we've got the apps folder here, libs. Inside apps, we've just got our 2 projects, Contoso and Contoso end-to-end. So this is this site here. Very, very basic. Basically just got one component, app component, and then we have our Contoso news component here, which is the one we have shared. And then if I minimize that, open up libs, shared, source, lib, news. So we've got one component which just has our news HTML in here. So this component is obviously it's within the Monorepo, so we can just use this, import it directly into our app module. So you'll see we've got our path import to the shared library, shared lib, and just import it into the module and then used in the template. So that's all pretty normal. And then if I open up our other repo, so this is the standalone, regular, non-mono repo Angular site. So if we go source, app component, and again, we've got this Contoso news component. So if I go into the package JSON, you will see that here we've got Angular to B's NX shared test. So this is the package that we're going to be updating. Currently on 003. And our import, if we go into the app module file, you can see this import is coming directly from our npm package. So pretty straightforward. If I jump back to the main site now, so this is the Monorepo project. What I'm going to do, actually first I'll just run this. So help if I'm in the correct directory. And that one's already running. Okay, cool. So if I refresh this one, that's our Monorepo site. Refresh this one, that is our multi-repo site. So what I'm going to do is open up the news HTML, and I'm going to make it look much, much better by making everything red, because as everyone knows, red text is the pinnacle of my design skill. Then all right, so that's all good. Obviously it's not reflected here because this is still using the outdated npm package. So the Monorepo site needs to package up the code and then send it to npm. So all I need to do, and this process can be streamlined a little bit with commands and that kind of thing, and made nice and quick. And also it's just an intermediary step along the way to migrate fully into Monorepo. But the process is, if I kill the server, first of all, remove the dist folder, okay, run the build command. So I'll build with prod the shared lib. So this runs Ng-packagr. So it packages up our Oh, actually, I forgot. I need to update the version number in our libs package JSON. So actually, if you look inside the lib folder, so we've got shared here. This lib comes with its own package JSON, and I'm going off script here a little bit, but when you generate, in order to get this, when you generate your lib, there's an option to make it publishable. It's a tiny bit buggy at the moment, so it needs a bit of manual intervention, but I'm guessing once they've sorted that out, it will essentially generate something that's a bit like this. Looks kind of like its own Angular project on its own with its own package JSON. So if we bump this up to version 004, we will delete dist again, rebuild shared. We will go into dist libs shared. So we are now in the root of the built project. Now if we go npm publish, okay, that's all done. We've got our new version number down here, 004. So now I'll jump into the standalone version. Sorry, standalone repo. So the multi-repo project, as it were. Open up the package JSON, find our project, find our package, bump up the version number to 004, npm install. And npm start. Okay, and with a bit of luck, I've done it on the wrong port. So npm start on the right port. And there we go. So now they are sharing properly the same code on the same version. I think you're going to see that's Tom. Cheers.
Right.
Sorry.
Couldn't you actually just leave that, just put a tilde 0.0.3, because then that'll just automatically update. You don't actually have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's very true.
So you don't have to increment that every single time you push a minor package release. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Yeah. So as long as people are sticking to proper semver package numbers, then yeah, that's a very, very good point. So you can quite seamlessly update everything.
Yeah, so if they're following semantic versioning, that works.
Yeah, so the like I said, the process can be streamlined. It's only temporary anyway, but I think it's fairly painless, to be honest. There's no part of the problem with Bit is that it tried to sort of do so much in terms of sandbox everything and run a bunch of tests and things like that. This is all proven technology. It's using Ng-packagr and npm under the hood, and it's quite straightforward. So I actually wrote a load of more detailed steps, but to be honest, a lot of these are just commands to run, and I think they'd bore everyone to death. I've put a link to this presentation on the chat. So if you ever need to get into this kind of stuff, you can, feel free to come on here and have a look at what I've written. And yeah, these steps will take you through the process of creating your npm project, setting everything up, setting up the lib, everything like that. It's got some useful links and a caveat in there. But yeah, I'm gonna actually leave it at that because I think that more or less covers it. I think Tom's done a great job on describing the benefits of NX. I'm looking forward a lot to actually getting it properly integrated into our stack, because, like I said, at the moment we're about 1/3 of the way through the migration, but so far it's been pretty pain-free.
Can I interrupt you with a round of applause?
Well, I think you need one too, then, Tom.
Well, I think you deserved it. That was a good demo of some really working code. You know, rather than here's something I made earlier, you did something. So that's cool.
Oh, I mean, I made most of it earlier, but yeah, yeah. Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Can I raise a question? Yeah, can I ask a question? Because you mentioned you were saying that NX, when we flag it as publishable, that bit is not working properly. Okay, can you expand?
Yeah, I have to actually try and remember what's not working about it. I have a feeling. I can't remember, to be honest. I'd have to go through it again. I think it was something. Everything, all the details you need to get around the issue that I had will be in the PowerPoint. It was something to do with it didn't quite set up the subfolder with everything you needed to build the lib. So I think there was an issue on GitHub. I'm not too sure.
I see. Could you? So in your presentation, you know, post notes, have you added a link to the GitHub issue as well?
I have not. No, I'll dig that out though.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to put it in the presentation, but if we could just stack it in the notes for the meetup, I'd be interested in that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. No worries. Yeah.
Cool. That was fantastic. I hope people feel that we didn't go on too long and that was useful. You can.
I found that really interesting, guys.
Yeah, thanks very much, everyone. That was really good.
Thank you.
Very helpful, thank you.
Yep. Sorry, you're all most welcome. Yeah, and thank you, Mark, as well. Yeah. I think our first remote effort has been a success, and I think we'll have to do another one. All right.
It's been good. Question, Alex, how did you find out about this?
I actually went on to meetup and just searched for Angular with no distance restriction, and
oh wow,
clicked through a few dozen and thought, oh, who's doing online presentations and who's packing in for the apocalypse, and you guys had an online presentation.
Cool. Were there many?
Well, here we go.
You have
Yeah, I've actually been to a couple now in Chicago, Belgium, Leipzig, Paris. There's quite a few ones, and particularly there's a TypeScript one. Link, if you like. It does it every week, and it's very good. It goes into depth in TypeScript features.
So you're basically nocturnal now, then?
Well, it depends. The Chicago ones are typically evening, which is my morning lunch break, morning tea, and then Belgium ends up being, it's a lunchtime in Belgium. That ends up being my my evening time. So it depends. UK is the worst, really.
Yeah, in many ways. Yeah. I'm hoping you'll stay in touch, Alex. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you guys. And it's coincidental that I've actually worked in your area. It was Durrington-on-Sea, my office was.
It's surprisingly near to where I live, actually.
I worked in that building as well, that old Lloyd's building.
Oh, really?
The tall one, bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I was in London. I took a job there. I moved down, lived above the Syrian restaurant, opposite the building for 6 months. Also was traveling.
Easy commute.
Speaking Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you, Alex.
There
I was just thinking, seeing as you mentioned it, it's worth me sharing this, I think. I'm going to just present my screen again, okay? And you're on it at the moment, Alex, so I'm just going to disappear. If I just take you over to that shared document, okay, there's a couple of links here, okay, for meetups coming soon, okay, and there's one by Nrwl themselves tomorrow, okay, they're on Eastern time or whatever, but it works out at our evening at 8:30 p.m. So that's a good one to go to. And another one on May 12th, there's another meetup group. I'm not even sure where they're based, but that was off the Nrwl Slack channel. They're talking about creating plugins for NX, which is super duper the next level, and I think that's where I want to explore, actually. So there you go. That's my thought. Okay.
Cool.
I'll try to unpresent now if I can find the button.
I'm just
I
trying
don't
to
think
drop
you
this
are.
link.
Oh, am I not? Oh, that was
Nope.
stupid, wasn't it? So am I sharing now? Yeah.
Now you are,
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see those there?
yeah.
So what I'll do, see this link to whoops, copy that, and if I pop that in the meeting notes, which should be over here, yeah, you can all jump onto that. So, right, that's that one.
Cool.
I'll stop presenting now.
I'm just trying to drop in this link into the chat. My chat is not working anymore. Is the chat closed?
Shouldn't be.
No, it's still there.
You can see your comments, but I can't contribute. There's no admin window.
It's up in the top right. Are you unable to click up there?
No, I can see the chat history, but I can't enter a new.
Oh, that's a. I'm sorry about that.
That's right. I'll post this link into the meetup discussion.
Yeah, sure. If you just get stuck, you can message me directly in the meetup, and I'll make sure it gets posted. Right?
Perfect.
Cool. I think we're there, guys. I think that was a big success. Well done, and pleasure to meet the most long distance, Alex, and a slightly less distance, but by no means, not impressive, is Mihai or Michael. Nice to meet you. All right.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Do feel free to come again if you felt it useful. Yeah, we like long distance visitors. That's cool. Okay. And it's also great to have a bunch of people from London as well, because funnily enough, I've been looking around, and London meetups for Angular are really pretty poor show at the minute. So we're doing pretty well for ourselves.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, safe journey home.
Cheers.
Thanks very much for the presentation. Thanks, Max.
Thanks, man. Thanks,
No
everybody.
worries. Cheers,
Good.
guys.
Yeah.
See you
Have a
all.
good in.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
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 Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.